It being a little past, was it 10:01 now? We'll open the Finance, thank you, Division 2 work session, and I'll call on Mr. Landrigan to start us off.
Good morning, everybody. So I think today we could probably fill 2 hours with kind of just resetting, recalibrating, and setting a plan for the next, 7 work days essentially until this committee should have all of its decisions done. I provided some documents on everybody's table, just very briefly what they all are. One is it starts off with the House Finance Division 2 recommended changes to House Bill 1 and 2. This is like our tracking sheets, and I'll walk us through this. It'll look familiar to those who have been in the committee before. The next document is the House Finance Division 2 Agency House Bill 2 draft requests. I'll walk us through that as well. Then I also gave you, which I think I had promised before but hadn't given you till now, an index to House Bill 2, as well as the official sections, the back of the budget sections for House Bill 1. Not really a whole lot of heavy lift there, but we'll get to that when we go through the tracking sheet. And then just so you have it, I think I emailed it to everyone, the 2 amendments that this committee adopted on bills. So on Monday, we have an exec session across the hall. Those are the only 2 amendments that this committee voted for.
When did you mail those?
I think back at the time that I had them drafted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those are the 2. Yeah, so it was only those 2.
Thank you. Just as we're getting into this and we're starting to look at lines in the budget, I wonder if we could get an idea of what the Division 2 allocation is for money and what they're going to say we have to cut. Do we know? Other divisions seem to know what theirs is. Do we know ours?
Well, yeah, sort of. So this is still a subject of discussion. When that allocation you've heard about, well, that you've apparently heard something other divisions have, that was done at a time and by someone who thought differently, didn't understand that adequacy, the funding of local schools was pretty much not going to be cut, or we probably wouldn't be in charge anymore, which would disappoint a lot of people on our side. I wouldn't bum you out too much.
Keep it up.
Which, fair enough. In any case, I will give you the number, but that was under that, assumption. So I'm still working to redirect people, but they're talking about cutting about $200 million out of Division 2. Now, having said that, one of the things that is in the governor's budget, I'm sure you're all aware of, is the lottery piece, which we have not yet addressed. And there is a plan to try to address that. So I'm meeting with Ways and Means and with other folks so theoretically, half of that, roughly, hopefully, would be that $200 million I'm talking about. So without the lottery, we'd be hosed in terms of that, trying to reduce $200 million. With that, hopefully we'll be in a better position, although still not in a great position. Does that answer your question as best I can?
Yeah, it helps. I'll take any information. But what if lottery doesn't pass the House? Isn't there still a bill to go to the House? And if lottery does not pass the House, are you going to be suggesting that we just put it into the budget regardless of what the House vote is?
Well, it won't be regardless of what the House vote is, because it doesn't look like there's going to be a House vote. So, but the answer to your question is yes, we're just going to put it in the budget. I'll let Mr. Landrigan speak to the doing that, but that's my understanding, that we are able to do that, and that's the approach that I'm envisioning.
So relative to video lottery terminals, the governor did put forth a proposal, and that's in House Bill 2. So making changes to that in this committee is germane and appropriate. We did talk about deferring to the work that House Ways and Means would do on House Bill 728. There's no requirement this committee adopt that. We had discussed that maybe was an approach. So for instance, if House Ways and Means were to retain that bill, for instance, really all of that work would fall here if you did want to pass some legislation that included VLTs and account for the revenue. So I believe they have an exec session scheduled on that bill Tuesday. And I know there are others also working on some different proposals relative to this. So probably next week we'd have to get an amendment drafted and review it and discuss it, and then perhaps have lottery come in to see if they would help us with a revenue estimate or how to account for some revenue associated.
Hold on. Is that
Yeah, no, I
Mr.
have-
President?
you're not-
Okay. Representative Popovich?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I just wanted to make sure I understand. So when we change fees and whatnot, those revenue estimates, do they still have to go through Ways and Means, or do we just bake them into our part of the budget? I just cannot remember from last term what was the process for that.
So anything that goes through this committee, you can ask Ways and Means for their input, but ultimately the estimates are part of your plan. And when we get into formulating the surplus statement, we would rely on the committee to decide how much revenue you're estimating associated with that change.
Thank you. I was just worried about the short time frame, and I just wanted to make sure I understand how many hoops we got to go through. This
Yeah,
helps.
no,
Thank you.
we should be able to handle that all in committee with maybe some offline discussion if you wish with either the chair of House Ways and Means or members from Ways and Means to get their input. But ultimately that decision would lie in this committee as far as how much to estimate on a revenue for a certain provision.
Button. Okay, so I guess we'll continue.
So I would like to keep us somewhat focused today, but I think one important thing that we don't have to get to it right away, is putting a plan together for the next week, week plus. Specifically, as you also, we reserved almost every day next week with some Division 2 time, but I think having some focus on what you want to do on each of those days will be helpful. So maybe when we go through all this today, at the end, maybe we can decide who we want to have in for how long and on which days and to talk about what. I suppose I could just dive right into these documents. And also, as I go through, these are meant to be somewhat complete. I've tried to compile everything that is kind of in our Division 2 universe to consider. If there's anything on here that you think is wrong, or if you think something's missing, we'll talk through it. And when I update these sheets, which I plan to do every day you meet, I'll add those in for Monday.
Is Fishing Game coming today?
Not today, no. So nobody's coming in today, but I was suggesting, so I sent you all a pretty hefty amount of follow-up information they provided yesterday. I suggest maybe Monday morning. We have only 2 hours in division because of the full committee in the afternoon. Maybe Monday morning we have Fishing Game come in and walk us through those documents. We could probably fill most of the 2 hours just going through all that stuff.
And so we have revenue estimates from, or not revenue estimates, fee information from safety. Are they come in to present those, or what?
We can have safety, and this is, again, when we go through all this today, maybe on the back end, we can decide what you want to do. We can certainly invite everyone or anybody back in, not necessarily everyone. You maybe
But
don't need to
we
hear
don't
from
necessarily have to.
You don't have to, no. But if you would like additional information or to talk through anything with the agencies, we can invite them back, and I'm sure they'd be more than willing. Specific with safety, they did provide some fee information, some like a spreadsheet to calculate some fee increases. I'm going back and forth with them on that just to check it for accuracy right now. So I had a few questions in. So I just want to make sure we have a clean tool to use if you did want to explore adjusting any fees. So I'm still going back and forth with them on that.
So just along those lines, you understand what I've been hoping to do. We're going back to the whole money thing. I'm hoping we can use, as I think I've mentioned this before, but fees in Fishing Game, would they mention that they were good with some of the ones in the dedicated funds to make Fishing Game fund solvent and unnecessary to have draw general funds. Similarly with safety, to make the highway fund solvent. And perhaps even, so we currently, as you're probably aware, we currently provide, I think it's $2 million a year to judiciary related to their court cases with regard to motor vehicles. So one possibility is, because Division 1, of course, has issues as well, is to increase that amount, which has not been increased for quite some number of years, if we're able to make the highway fund well enough off to do that kind of thing.
So I'd say the first document we can dive into is the tracking sheet document. So the first one should be on the top of your piles, the House Finance recommended changes to House Bill 1 and 2. So again, this is should be a familiar sheet for those who were here before. And what this first page does is lays out all of the House Bill 1 back of the budget sections and all of the House Bill 2 sections that are assigned to Division 2. So on all of these, I will ask that the committee does vote either, make a vote to adopt an amendment to delete it, an amendment to change it, or you just want to accept it as is, how it came to you from the governor. So at some point, we'll take a vote on all of those. And then down below, as we start getting some drafted, any additional House Bill 2 amendments, I'll list at the bottom and then keep track of those. And then if you look on the next 4 pages, there are 4 amendments that the committee could consider today. I would look at these as somewhat technical in nature. And you can see on the first page here, I've bolded and highlighted which section those amendments would change. So I don't know if that's something you wanted to do today. I think it's a nice, easy start to get to do a couple votes and check a couple things off, but I'll defer to you all.
I would certainly love to do that as long as there's agreement on both sides. I think these are fairly non-controversial. Is that?
Yeah, I believe so too. If you want me to walk you through them, I can real quick. So the first one, so on page 46 of House Bill 2, section 81, the CCSNH dual and concurrent enrollment. So this was in the governor's budget. It was also part of a bill that was filed by the House Bill 192, which has been passed and is on to the Senate. So this could be a section you just delete from House Bill 2. It has independent legislation going through. It does not tie to House Bill 1 in any way. I think this is a way you could clean up House Bill 2. It's no longer necessary in here.
And I did speak with, I want to use her last name to be appropriate here, Miss Reed. Well, I know it's Shannon, but I was trying to be a little more formal, Shannon Reed, about this, and she is fine with what went through the Senate going on through. It's just the language, no money involved. So do you want to go and just deal with these as we go, or how do you want to handle it?
You certainly could. So in the past, typically what you would do is, move it just like an amendment to any other bill, move and get a second and take a vote on it. And then I would know that amendment's been adopted, and then I'll put that in as part of our overall package of recommendations.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Sure.
Representative Murray? Second.
So we're moving to delete 81.
Well, finish, complete. I don't know about deleting it.
Say what?
Oh, deleting section 81. Yes,
Delete
correct.
81.
Yes. Yes. So we're making a motion to delete section 81 of HB2 on page 46, which is the CCSNH dual and concurrent enrollment program credits per course, which actually defines some limitations on the number of credits that attendees can get without their own expense being required.
This is because it's included in another bill that's passed.
And this is right. So this language was in a bill that we already passed the House, and it's actually already on its way to the Senate. And the representative from CCSNH was comfortable with this approach.
So this is a little different, so have patience with me.
Sure. Yeah. Take your time.
So what is the bill number again? Is there a bill number?
It's an HB2 change.
We don't know HB2 change. Okay.
So HB2 is the bill,
And
and it's section 81.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
in the
Sorry.
past too, and if everyone agrees, sorry to cut everybody off, a way to perhaps simplify this, because we will have a lot of votes, is just a show of hands.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
instead of a roll call on every
works.
single, yeah. You may get to situations where you maybe want to do a roll call on certain amendments later on, but
Okay.
most of this, I think if everyone agrees, a show of hands, I think it may help our clerk as well as just overall efficiency.
So all in favor? Unanimous. Unless you're going to vote against it.
Do we need
She's
to,
too busy
do we
to
need
do
to record a second for that, or?
Popovich seconded it. He
Okay,
seconded it.
thanks. Okay,
You miss a day or two, nobody remembers you.
page 46.
And what I'll do also, again, just to remind everyone, by Sunday night, to get ready for Monday, you'll get a brand new one of these with the committee's actions populated in this far right column. So you'll be able to see, and again, if anyone's like, hey, we didn't agree on that, or I'm, just bring it up to me and I make mistakes. And, if something's wrong in there, we want to make sure we get it right.
What was the bill that's on its way to the Senate?
It's House Bill 193, I believe it is. Yep. So moving on, similarly, sections 143 and 144 of House Bill 2 are relative to extra duty functions of the police standards and training specialists. This also was included in House Bill 2, but it also had a separate bill. That bill, House Bill 778, has passed the House and gone over to the Senate as well. So similarly, I think you could delete this. It does not need to be in House Bill 2. On page 62 of House Bill 2.
And the last one was HB 193, correct?
HB 193.
Thank you.
Two.
Sections 143 and 144,
Oh, there it is.
right?
Yes. Hold on.
Where were? Section 140. So they can work, so this is they can work overtime. They can be called in for extra details. Page 62,
Oh, yes, thank you.
143.
This isn't just related to overtime, isn't it also certain people? Certain,
I think this is relative to like details, like to allow them to partake in police details.
right, but it's a certain, it's not just, is it, so, and it's any of the police standards people?
Or their training specialists, I think.
Okay.
The language, yeah. I'm assuming certified, not the entirety of their staff. Yeah.
Okay.
For law enforcement, crowd control, for public or private events. Extra duty performed outside their business hours.
That's where they-
Yeah, it gives them,
Okay.
Mickey, you already have these in this already written.
he's good.
It would be nice if I had known that was. I'm sorry.
Sorry. So yes.
So all I.
Yeah. Sorry. So yeah.
Thank you, Mickey.
So do I have a motion? Representative Popovich?
I will make such motion.
Do I have a second? Representative Hacken Phillips? Let me know when you're ready,
Now, this is,
Madam Clerk.
we are accepting sections,
We're deleting.
We're deleting those sections because they are in a separate bill that
this
is
a
passed to
sep-
the
what's the
Senate.
bill for this one?
HB,
Yep.
I'm sorry, HB
778.
778.
yeah, so I'll just clarify. So the motion is to delete sections 143 and 144 of HB 2 on page 62 as the same language or the equivalent language is in HB 778, which has already passed the House and is in the Senate. So just let us know when you're ready and we'll take a, okay, so all in favor? Any opposed? Yes, unanimous.
Still on consent.
The next one, if we're ready to move on, I would think would be, it's page 64 of House Bill 2, section 151. And there is an amendment here to correct it. So the way that this came to us in House Bill 2, if you have House Bill 2 in front of you, you'll notice on lines 19 of page 64. Yeah, this is where the intention was to delete that last sentence, but the way it was drafted, it just added that same language again. So if you look on page 4 of the tracking sheet package I sent you, you'll see the amendment strikes out that last sentence that was the intention all along. The department's good with this. This is what the governor intended to put in. There's no fiscal impact here. I think this is a pretty harmless change. It was, yeah, the way it came to us was essentially a typo. So we would want to just accept amendment 0813 would be the motion.
Move to accept amendment number 0813H.
Representative Popovich seconds. President Kelly makes the motion. And the motion is to accept the amendment that is a correction to section 151 of HB 2 on page 64, basically deleting a sentence that should have been deleted, but was mistakenly not deleted. And let me know when you're all set. Okay. All in favor? Just raise your hands. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. What's that? All right, Mr. Landergan.
And the last of the amendments that we have drafted for today would be on page 72 of House Bill 2, section 178. And we would delete this section. And the reason is, and this is why I gave you House Bill 1 sections, the back of the budget sections. This is the same language that is also in the back of House Bill 1. It's section 2 of House Bill 1. Sorry, section 4 of House Bill 1. This language for the authority for the Lottery Commission to acquire tickets and do it, this is boilerplate language that has been in the back of House Bill 1 for many, many years, before my time. This allows them to buy their ticket inventory, their ticket stock. It's boilerplate. Why it was included in House Bill 2, I think, was a mistake because it was included in the governor's House Bill 1 document. So I think if you delete it from House Bill 2, we can just decide if you just want to give it a thumbs up when we get to House Bill 1, and I'll get us to that point. But it definitely doesn't need to be in both. It should be in the back of House Bill 1 for consistency.
Do I have a motion? Representative Popovich.
I'll move to adopt amendment 0892H.
Do I have a second?
Sure.
Representative Murray. So this is a motion to adopt Amendment 2025-0892H, which deletes section 178 from HB 2 on page 72, as the language is the same language is already included in HB 1. Are you ready, Madam Clerk? All in favor? Raise your hands. That's everybody. Anybody opposed? No. Oh. It's no. Unanimous. And back to Mr. Landergan.
Following directions.
So, yeah, no, you're welcome. So those are the four amendments that we had today. I think pretty easy, pretty, just mostly technical in nature. If the committee wants, we can roll right to the top of this tracking sheet. And then if there's any sections that you heard from the departments, it's something that's in House Bill 2, you don't think you are going to want to change, you'll accept it the way the governor and the agencies put it forward, you could vote today to accept those. Two right off the bat, I would say, are the part of the House Bill 1 sections that I gave you. The education, general fund, and appropriation limits for university and community college system, and the Lottery Commission, which we just talked about. Those are boilerplate, back of the budget things that have existed. There's no impact with those. You can take a look, or just think about it for next time we meet. That's
Where are you right now?
on House Bill 1. So those sections that I gave you, the back of the budget sections of House Bill 1, because remember, we do have two separate bills we have to deal with here. It's I don't have a hard copy, but yes. No, not House Bill 1.
Oh, these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
251165.
Yeah, it's the actual cover page of House Bill 1 and then just the back of the budget sections. The big portion of House Bill 1 is your big budget book. That's not printed in that. This is just a small document of just the back of the budget sections. So sections 2 and 4 are assigned to Division 2 to decide on. And both are boilerplate, consistent sections of House Bill 1 that have existed for years. So it'd be section 2 of that bill that you have in your hand. I think it's on page 7. It says 723. Yeah. Yeah. So on line 28, you'll see the.
So what did you, oh, back to the budget sections. Okay, here we go.
I mean, we could hold off
No,
on
no,
these
this is fine,
today.
this is fine. No, let's keep moving. So you said line 28?
Page 723, line 28.
Yeah, got it,
Bureau of
got it.
Education Trust Fund. That's the-
Got it. Whoops.
Section 2 and 4 on the
I-
next page.
Yeah, I actually am going to suggest perhaps holding on to section 2 until you decide what you're going to do with the university and community college systems budget.
Okay.
You probably won't change it, but just in case, I think it's good to just have that.
Okay.
Section 4, the lottery commission, I think you could just give that a thumbs up if nobody had any issues with that one.
Line 11.
Line 11 on,
Next page.
yeah, page 724 is what the header says. Yes, it was in both bills, yeah.
Just to leave it over here.
Yeah. Leave it for HB2.
This is the state information, just paragraph 4.
And it was deleted.
It appeared in both bills out of the governor's office, so we just deleted it from House Bill 2. It always resides in House Bill 1.
Yeah, yes.
So just as a reminder to everyone, we have time to review the darn thing, so don't feel the pressure when you look at a paragraph. Take a few seconds to read it, because it's much easier to express a concern before we vote on it than to then reconsider a vote and start tinkering with stuff with approved. So take a few seconds. We have the time. We're getting it done.
So everything here is new in HB1. We need to approve all these sections as well, essentially. Is that accurate? Or is this just HB1?
So this is just House Bill 1, the back of the budget sections. House Bill 1 that everyone always refers to, like the budget lines, that's section 1 of House Bill 2. These are the sections 2 and after that we're talking about. So we're not talking about funding levels here. We're talking about a couple like footnotes essentially of the
And we need
operating
to
budget.
approve each one of them.
Just the ones that are assigned. So basically just section 2 and 4. And then if we do abolish any positions with your decision making, we would update the section relative to abolish positions as well. But really sections 2 and 4 are the only ones assigned to Division 2.
So are we all good with this?
No.
No.
That's okay. I really want to understand.
Oh, well, read it.
And we are going to have voting a lot next week. If no one is feeling prepared to do stuff today, and we want to have, there's no rush. We feel like we've already made pretty good progress with those 4 amendments today, so I'm pleased. So
This is a smaller section for HB2.
it is. We've certainly had bigger. We've certainly had more sections in this. Yeah.
Or would you rather read it over the weekend? We don't have to vote on it today.
Well, no, I mean, everybody else is ready. It's just the newbies.
Okay, no, take your time. I'm gonna take a break.
Look, it's again on the mic, so people who may be watching know what's going on. We were reviewing the fact that this is a work session, therefore it's perfectly okay for somebody to take a minute to read something and see if they're ready to vote on it or not. So we are taking that time. We'll start working again as soon as we are ready. Mickey, for Mr. Landrigan, for clarification, the action that we are looking to take on section 4, if nobody objects, is to just approve it as written in the back of HB1.
Correct.
Because it had already been, the duplicate language has been just removed from HB2. So now the correct language is only in one place to make housekeeping easier.
Correct.
Thank you.
Means you're not Irish at all.
We don't have a motion, do we? Or do we?
Not yet. You were out of
Okay, yeah, well, no, it's fine. You took over. Do I have a motion?
I wouldn't leave. How are you?
Sorry, I have issues. How about Harry?
There you go, Harry.
No?
I'll make a motion to approve section 4 of page. Oh, sorry, I'll make a motion to approve section 4 of page 724 in HB1 as written.
Second by Representative Murray.
I guess I should add referring to the Lottery Commission just to have no ambiguity.
Any further discussion? Ready, Madam Clerk? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed?
So we will be deferring action then per the advice of Mr. Landrigan for section 2 on page 723 regarding the education budget, abundance of caution and all that. Thank you.
And just a reminder to everybody too, all of these are just recommendations as we go along. Everything can be revisited and has been in the past, and nothing's final until we kind of hit the end of our deadline. So I think we can probably be done with this first page of this tracking sheet today, this tracking package. But as we continue on the coming days, every one of these amendments, or excuse me, every one of these sections in House Bill 2, we usually ask that you vote on one way or another, just so we know what the committee's intent and what intent is, whether it's going to stay in or come out or whatever. And this will apply to everything as we continue on. We are getting near the end of our or close to our deadline. So if anyone has an amendment, now is really the time to reach out to me and I'll help you draft it and include it in this package, similar to the ones that you saw in here today, the technical ones. We're getting to the point where you're going to have to start closing out some things, as the days move on.
Representative Pavlovich?
Thank you. Since Mr. Landrigan is bringing it up, there was something that I think I haven't managed to share with the committee yet, which is one of the items we were discussing in the Revenue Committee for the Fish and Game. One of the concerns of that committee was that right now, when you take a hunter or a trapper class, you don't have to pay for the class. You take it for free. You could take the class and never even apply for the exam. And the concern of the committee was that seems to be a bit wasteful, because we're basically giving free training to people who may just be wasting our time and taking our slots. Combining that with the fact that the department has a tendency to fill its classes and not really be able to offer new classes, leading to some people never being able to attend. One of the thoughts of that committee, which I'd like to share with this committee to see if it makes sense for everybody, was to require people to pay for the license first and then be allowed the free training class. Now, there is a test that needs to be taken, and if they fail, the suggestion of the previous committee was to allow them to take the class a second time to ensure they pass. But the idea was that asking for this would increase the number of people that take the training class that actually get the license, because it would basically say, hey, you have to commit to applying for the license before we let you take the free training class. And again, it's something that I didn't bring up yet, so I wanted to bring it up now. If the committee feels it's a good idea to at least have an amendment drafted along those lines, we could ask Mr. Landrigan to draft it and then review it and decide whether it makes sense. But I didn't want to just ask him to draft an amendment without the committee opining first.
I think I'd wait, if Fish and Game is coming in on Monday, wait and have them talk about that. The other thing, which is a little more compelling to me, is it has to be very frustrating with all the dedicated funds that can't be used for anything else. And so they don't raise the rates because they're only going to have money sitting there, to have that a cap on it so that surplus can go to their operating and allow them to have the opportunity. So I feel a little more, if we're gonna go in a direction, if we only, we can go in 100 directions, hopefully we won't. But I'm pretty much behind that as far as I understand it now, but with Fish and Game coming in Monday, I would be happy for that, but I think that's an amendment we should consider for Fish and Game.
Would it be productive, given that this was discussed with them in the fall and they did not really seem to be opposed to it per se? Would it be more productive to maybe have an amendment drafted on Monday so they can opine on the language and then we can consider this? I'm not looking to have the amendment adopted without talking to them and giving them an opportunity, but maybe if we have an initial draft of the amendment, it make the Monday discussion more productive.
I'm not sure we can get OLS. I mean, we would have to
Oh, yeah.
see if we can get an amendment turned around for Monday morning, which may be tricky, but
Okay.
I can work with you and start getting something drafted. We can.
I would be happy to if that's the will of the committee, but otherwise I'm happy to wait if the committee feels we should wait until Monday morning. Just trying to find the most productive way of getting that done. You know, we do have a lot of moving parts, so.
I don't think it would hurt for you to get here with Ms. Landrigan and at least get your, start the process so he knows what you're looking for. Whether it gets done by Monday morning or not is a separate issue.
So I'll start the process on amendment, which to summarize will require Fish and Game to charge people who register for a class, say starting July 1st or whenever the budget gets in place, right? It will require it to charge the people the license they would owe for the hunting license and trapping or whatever. And they would have 2 opportunities to take the class included in that fee. Right? Does that make sense? That's kind of what we were doing in the fall, but would that be acceptable? Because the concern was if you charge them the hunter license and they fail the exam, they'll be frustrated. So the second time to take the hunter license class for the same fee seems reasonable. And I think that Roy is trying to speak.
Yes. I'm just curious how logistically that would happen, though. I mean, when you go to get your hunter license, you get your hunter license. So how would they handle that?
The same way they handle it right now when you need to get your hunter's license. You can pay at whatever outfit you want, and as soon as you put your application in, you can go and schedule your class.
So they don't send the hunter license until after the class.
Well, you cannot possibly qualify for it until you pass the class. There is a written test, there is a field day. So they already have a pretty tough process in terms of, making sure you are eligible and you are qualified. This would only move the payment from after everything is concluded to the beginning of the process, so you don't go through the training class and then just never apply. It's wasteful. I mean, we're spending time and money to train people who don't apply.
Okay, thank you.
I was just gonna say, with everything we're going through, could we wait till, you can, I guess, start your process, but wait till Fish and Game gets here to get it from the deer's mouth, maybe?
I'm fine with that. I can wait. I mean, I don't want to.
Representative Bean?
I just don't know how you're gonna go get the hunter's license. You'll have the license. What makes you go to the class? You've already got the license.
You don't get the license, you just pay the fee, and you only get your license at the end of the, approval process. The idea is not to get people a free ride in taking a class without ever intending to apply for a license, which happens quite a few times.
You believe that?
Funny, the department in the fall seemed to indicate that, there are quite a few cases of people that, for whatever reason, take the class and then their plans change or, they move or whatever, and they never apply. And we're also, again, unable to serve other people who want to get into classes, and the classes are full. And the department needs the revenue. It's not only the revenue from the license itself, even though that's meaningful, but it's also, some of the Pittman Robertson money is allocated based on how many licensed people we have in the state. So there are good reasons to continue to help increase the number of licensed hunters and fishers and trappers and so on. So this is an attempt to make that work a bit better. It shouldn't be a huge change in revenue, but every little thing helps.
We could just charge for the class. But anyway, let's wait for a Fish and Game.
All right.
Mr. Landrigan?
So yes, so to confirm, we will invite Fish and Game in for our 10 to 12 block on Monday. And like I said, they have a lot of other deliverables, including some of the things you talked about, and we can bring that up too with them.
So just to follow up on that, is that the only thing we'll be able to get done on Monday? Like we limit them to an hour and still have an hour to get some other things done?
Have you taken, they did provide quite a bit of information.
Have I read it all? No.
I think you'd have to be very efficient to get through them in an hour, but it's possible.
okay.
There's
No, no.
always the option of recessing when we're done with them in the morning until after the
Finance.
exec, and then we could come back later in the afternoon if we have stuff we wanted to get done.
I'm just concerned. I know there's a lot.
Yeah.
And we don't have Thursday, of course, and we only have Friday morning, which
Yeah.
because I have the judicial thing in the afternoon.
All right. So the next page we'll jump to is page 6 of the tracking sheet packet, and the orientation of the document is going to change to landscape. So is everybody here? All right. So this is, we're in the packet that the front page looks like this, and then page 6 of this document. Yep. All right, perfect. So this is where I've captured all of the, we'll call it funding changes that have either been proposed by an agency, an additional prioritized need, or just other changes discussed, just to try to get everything on here for you to consider. And I can walk us through very quickly everything here. So Department of Safety's only funding change request was relative to funding the Northern Border Alliance. So this was a $600,000 request. They came in, and when they met with us, this was something they had brought up. Fish and Game is pretty incomplete in both of these documents here, because they just sent a whole new package yesterday, like I said. So the only thing on here for them as of right now was their general fund support that they had testified to us when they came in. I expect after Monday I'll probably add more to this. Department of Transportation, lines 3, 4, and 5 were their additional prioritized needs relative to highway programs, the retention incentive program, equipment replacement, and winter maintenance. Line 6, the transit operating match. You recall we had a work session with transit operators relative to that.
Mr. Landrigan, on the Department of Transportation requests, as you go through them, could you indicate which of them must be funded from the general fund and which of them could be funded from one of the dedicated funds they have available? I'm trying to understand, because that is a complicated department, right? I don't want to use funds improperly, but I would like to minimize the use of general funds whenever other funds may be available. Even if the highway fund, for example, has a structural deficit, we're going to try to address it. So anything that can be spent for the Department of Transportation from one of their dedicated funds, I would really like to hear whether it's possible, even if that fund right now does not seem to have the funds available.
Sure. I mean, for the first 3, those are historically just unrestricted highway fund appropriation. I'm not sure what dedicated funds at Department of Transportation.
Is that something, again, highway fund,
Yep.
Obviously the turnpike fund is restricted, but if any parts of those expenditures could come from dedicated funds, even if you don't have the answer right now. Yeah. And please note, you said historically. I get the history, but historical and possible are different things. We may have done things a certain way for a while. If it's possible to do them differently, I'd like to explore it. I'm just trying to find funds in ways that would reduce the need for us to straight out cut or deny requests. I'm looking for ways to grant them the requests with less of an impact on the general fund. So if that's at all possible.
When you say dedicated funds, you're including the highway fund, aren't you?
Every dedicated, anything that's not general fund.
No, specifically, I think there's some confusion here. When you say dedicated, you're including the highway fund.
I specifically said, the highway fund, the turnpike fund, any other fund, any non-general fund funding.
Okay.
So lines 3 through 5 are highway fund requests. Line 6 is the only general fund request of the department, and that is not something that highway fund would be an appropriate use for, which is why it's a general fund request. Line 7, you remember they talked about their P3, the operator agreement that they had with Dover Portsmouth facilities, I believe it was. So they are trying to come up with a way to restrict the revenue that they collect for that purpose under the operator agreement. They have language, and you'll see it when we get to the House Bill 2 sections, something we could add to House Bill 2 that just restricts the revenue in the budget, doesn't create a dedicated fund. They didn't seem to get a warm reception to the idea of establishing a brand new dedicated fund for this. So they did come up with a workaround that would at least restrict that money for its agreed upon use. What you see here would be revenue from that agreement, $52,000 in fiscal 26 and $78,000 in fiscal 27, just to put it in House Bill 1 to reflect that new function that they'd be doing. Line number 8 is nothing you really have to worry about right now. So if you recall, apportionment A specifically is a big one, but also some of the construction lines in the Betterment program, as well as the SB 367 account, are driven by your revenue estimates. So for apportionment A, this is your highway block grants to cities and towns. So 12% of the previous year's highway fund revenue, essentially motor vehicle fees and road toll, gets paid to cities and towns. So the numbers that are reflected on here, and then the construction lines, a portion of the road toll goes to the Betterment program, the 3 cents we've heard from the department about that. So the amounts that are represented on here would be decreases to the governor's budget because House Ways and Means estimates were a little bit lower than the governor's. So these accounts are tied to warrant language that the department would still just pay whatever it is. This is just accurately reflecting in the budget what we think those will be based on the revenue. So somewhat technical, but at least it aligns your spending plan with your revenue plan. The reason why I'd say hold off on these for now is this committee is discussing changing motor vehicle fees. So these would be changed as a result of that. So we'll hold on to that to see what we do with fees.
Can you go over that just again? I always don't like the parentheses. So this is money that we don't basically have to find. This is money that,
Oh, sorry. I should have said that at the beginning. So all of these columns represent a change to the budget you're working from.
yeah.
So if it's a parenthesis, that's a reduction.
So this is a reduction from what is in the governor's
Correct.
budget because Ways and Means has adjusted.
Yeah, so they're assuming lower revenue, so therefore we'd assume these programs would have lower costs.
So this is a cost savings. This isn't another hole we have to fill.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you could look at it that way, yeah.
But just keep in mind, the reason it's a savings is because the top line revenue number is going down.
The net impact of adjusting for the revenue change and adjusting for these is it hurts your bottom line compared to the governor's because overall you're expecting less revenue. So next set is the Department of Education. So lines 9 through 12. The first 3 lines are their additional prioritized needs. They talked about their learning platform software, state testing, expanding to do a PSAT for 10th graders, and then the position for a state assessment administrator, which is already an existing position that is fully federally funded. They're asking to split it half and half, general fund and federal fund, because that position does non-federal work as well. So they're trying to expand the use of that position. Line 12, the department had in their presentation that there was 10 brand new positions in Workforce Innovation Division relative to disability services determination. They don't exist currently. They were put in their agency budget request back in August. They're saying those can come out. They're not going to need or fill those. So that's what you see there. It's only federal funds, not going to help your general fund requests in any way. And then on line 13 of this document, if you remember, they provided some detail on vacant positions. So the commissioner had said, here's some vacant positions that we really want to keep, and here's some positions that could be abolished. They provided a revised estimate of that or a revised schedule of that, which I sent to you. So the original number I think was 29 positions. They backed it down to 20 after another review since they were in here.
Can we just go back, as above, when you talked about the 10 new positions on line 12 being federal, that really has no bearing on the budget. That would be true also of the education, those are all federal positions.
On
So
line
it's like-
13,
Yes, in line 13, the federal positions,
I think there were 3 general funded positions and then the rest were federal. So there is a general fund portion
well,
there.
there's a GF, I'm talking about the federal ones.
Yeah.
Would not,
So those are federal.
and so the federal ones don't impact us.
Right, we just take the positions away. Basically, what was just the Fed, as I understand, the federal government required the positions, and we don't need the positions, so he wants to take them out of the budget. They don't impact our general fund. You're right.
But there's no money to take out since they're federal. It does not affect us. It's more housekeeping almost.
Yes.
Yeah, you would align your budget document, House Bill 1, with, I guess, anticipated programmatic uses, I guess, of the department. I think the commissioner had stated he didn't expect he'd be able to fill those positions. And if he could, if, for instance, they have the money and are able to hire, they could come to the fiscal committee and establish a temporary position through the biennium and do that. So this would be just to reflect in your House Bill 1 that you're not anticipating those positions to be in existence.
Representative Roy?
Just curious, how many were the Fed positions? Do we know?
I'd have to double check. I believe it was 3 general fund, and on line 13, 3 of them were general fund and the remainder were,
And the remainder.
yeah,
Thank
were
you.
federal.
Thank you.
Representative Popovich?
Thank you. And just to be clear, as a former CPA, I agree that the Fed funds do not directly impact our budget, but carrying those positions when we don't need them just tends to confuse matters when you budget, because now you have a budget that's bigger than it should be, and then you got to account for the fact that they are unfilled. So while it doesn't impact the budget, having clearly a more readable budget that's easier to read benefits both the department, us, and everybody who's trying to understand the Department of Education budget. So yeah, I wish we could save more money there instead of just saying, well, federal money is in and out. But it does provide much needed clarity and a clear direction to the department. So I think it's still good measures to take, even though we don't benefit, as much as we'd like.
And those 2 lines, line 12 and 13, if you're ultimately gonna want to do those or a combination of them or in some variation, I personally would ask that you do it maybe on the front end of next week, because there is some budget entry, data entry involved with that I would have to handle, and it would just be something that I would prefer more time on. I don't know if you would need more information relative to those. If we could always track that down for you, but that could be something perhaps you consider early on next week.
Representative Popovich?
Personally, I would be comfortable acting now, but recognizing that most of my colleagues may want to review I would suggest specific information. I would suggest we add this to the Monday morning after Fish and Game discussion, and maybe Mickey, if you, Mr. Landrigan, if you can have that detailed list of the positions too, because that seems to be where the questions are coming from. Which positions are they exactly? How many of each and whatnot? So if we have a nice list pulled from the list of positions that he has on Monday, I think we should be able to vote on this.
So moving on, lines 14 through 16. So we heard from the Department of Education, losing track of days, Monday afternoon. And as part of the afternoon session, there was discussion about the estimates relative to charter school funding and EFAs and EFA phase-out grants. So the numbers on here are the difference between the estimates provided by the department and what the governor funded those programs at under current law. We have a couple of bills coming this way, House Bill 115 relative to EFA eligibility and House Bill 563 relative to adequacy. At some point, we'll probably have a big day of ed funding type discussions. This is just carried on here to show if you wanted to fully fund at the department's estimates, this is how much it would be above and beyond the governor's budget. But like I said, depending on what you do with those bills and if you incorporate them into your budget package, these numbers may change, and we'll track that. Line 17, we did hear that Bedford approved full-day kindergarten. So the numbers carried on here are reflective of the state paying adequacy on the remaining half of those students. For the first year of implementation would be the 25-26 school year coming up, and then those kids would be part of full adequacy after that. We may get slightly revised numbers. I'm carrying $500,000 here. The department's going to give me more true numbers. It probably won't move a ton, but that's something that I think we kind of have to carry under current law. That's what they would get paid. So that to me is somewhat of a surplus statement adjustment. We would just carry kindergarten aid for Bedford as an anticipated cost that the department will have. Moving on. Lottery Commission came in with 2 requests, one for the security system, one for the ADA building compliance improvements. Those are sweepstakes funds. I'll leave it at that. You guys can decide if you want to fund those requests or not.
Weren't those in their presentation they were talking about?
Yes.
100,000? Okay.
And that's what this document is meant to do, is compile all of those requests from all the agencies that either came in during their presentations to you or maybe have come since then. And I'm just trying to compile everything so nothing falls through the cracks here.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yep, it is the same request they spoke to. Police standards and training on page 7. I have it broken up as 2 separate items here. They did ask to unfund one of their generally funded positions and transfer that money into class 27 to pay for an OIT position. It's a net zero change. This was their only budget request.
Net zero change, I think, except that right now that position where I'm funding was vacant anyway, so we were expecting it to lapse. So in a sense, they are asking for new money. They're just trying not to create a new appropriation. I'm just trying to make sure I recap the discussion correctly, right? So right now they don't have the IT and they don't have that position filled. They would like to get the IT position, and they are eliminating the appropriation need by trading off, as it were, a vacant position, but they are getting a new employee. Technically, we could unfund that position, not approve their IT, and have a saving there, if we so decide.
That's correct.
Thank you.
It's net zero in their budget proposal. Yeah. So that concludes the funding impact changes I have from the departments that they brought through. Again, if a member would like to, make a motion on one of those and support that, or some variation of it, or do something else that an agency never brought up, like you want to reduce a line by this amount or add amount to this, you can work with me and I can come up with an amendment. I would add it to this, put an amendment, separate one so people can see what you're looking to do. But those, I just ask we start getting those out, probably first of next week. Hopefully we start that discussion. All right, next moving on is the bills that we've had. So the first subset here is bills that we've already had work sessions on. So House Bill 129 was relative to evidence-based definition within public education. The Department of Ed had asked for a position in their fiscal note. The bill itself does not have an appropriation or authorization for a position. We retain that bill. So at this point, it would stay retained. The bill would stay retained if this committee wants to add that language to House Bill 2 or fund a position that the department says you can do it any which way you want. You could add it to House Bill 2 and not provide any funding. You could add it to House Bill 2 and provide the position, or you could do nothing. It's up to the committee. Similarly, House Bill 133. This one was slightly different in that it did have a general fund appropriation in the bill. We also retained this bill, so it's subject to working with the department. but they had also suggested, in addition to the $40,000 for software, that they would need a position to administer the changes in the bill. Again, it's up to the committee to decide if you want to include this legislation in your House Bill 2, and then whether or not you want to fund it. I will also point out, yesterday, I think it was House Bill 763 relative to, it's like AEDs in sports and public schools. That bill passed, and I'm not sure why, but was not referred to finance. There was a small $80,000 a year general fund appropriation in that bill. So the surplus statement for the House Finance Committee's overall budget will carry $80,000 a year to the Department of Safety for that bill. It didn't come to us for review, but that was $160,000 spend over the biennium. Unrelated to this bill, but Department of Safety related. I think it was 763. I have to double check the number, but it was relative to AED availability in sports and schools.
So if it is an increase, how do we handle that? Because, potentially just, hypothetically, what if it is something we wouldn't fund?
So the way we handle it is we'll carry on the surplus statement of the House Finance Committee's overall plan, an appropriation adjustment of $80,000 a year. If this committee doesn't want to approve that, which is, in the past this has happened, you could put something in House Bill 2 that says the provisions of House Bill whatever of the 2025 session shall not take effect. So it's clearly as part of your budget package, you don't want to spend the money that the House as a body passed. So you're kind of undoing the effectiveness of that. If you recall, I think we did that 2 years ago with a school nutrition related bill. Yeah.
So will you be including a reference to that on the surplus statement so we can actually see that?
Yes.
And
Yeah. I mean, it's a small number, obviously, and you may not see a surplus statement until after the division's done its work, right? So usually we don't compile a surplus statement in its final form that you're used to seeing until all the division recommendations are done.
I thought you were carrying the bills somewhere that have passed.
We're carrying them, but I'm just saying as far as a document that's public, we don't update the quote
Oh, I see.
surplus statement. This is a general fund expenditure. So I'll update Education Trust Fund, Highway, and Fish and Game for you, since that's kind of contained to this committee. The general fund surplus statement, we're not going to update regularly because all three divisions are working simultaneously. Mike Kane in our office he's tracking all that daily, but he's not putting out a new document necessarily every day.
So I guess I'm just trying to understand how we might be reminded of it. Would it appear here or just nowhere?
You don't have to do anything else at this point unless you want to undo it.
Well, I understand that, but it sounded
So,
like
I
maybe
mean,
we did.
I can add it to the list. I could add it to, just as a note on here as a reminder.
Yeah.
But I don't want to, I'll come up with a way to present that.
Come with a new chart or whatever, new table. There you go.
I just want to make it clear, it's not a decision Division 2 made at this point. It was a decision of the full House, but at least I'll list it as something you can consider. The next three bills are, well, we'll go one at a time, I guess. The math learning communities, this is another bill we're going to retain. This is part of CCS&H's budget line, which, jumping back up to the previous section, USNH and CCS&H did not have any requests. So that's why they were not included in the first listing that we went through.
we retained that?
We retained the idea of the funding. We're passing House Bill 494
we had an
of the
OTPA,
policy.
right?
Yeah, we're passing the statutory changes that's the OTPA recommendation for Monday.
Right.
The informal retain is the considering what to do with the funding, because the appropriation was taken out of that bill with the amendment that you passed. I'll go slightly out of order. House Bill 716, dual and concurrent enrollment, same thing. That bill's retained. So math learning communities, dual and concurrent enrollment will be considered with wherever you decide to land with CCS&H's overall funding and how you want to earmark dollars for specific programs. And then lastly, House Bill 671, the kindergarten literacy readiness. We heard from folks earlier this week on that. I think it was this week. Maybe it was last week. So this was the contract cost presented by the Department of Education, $600,000 a year, as well as some small costs for the HHS had some related costs to the bill. So those items will essentially, unless somebody asks me for an amendment, if we don't draft anything and put in House Bill 2, they effectively fall through. Like, won't go anywhere. So those bills were retained, right? The money and everything about these bills was retained, so they'll just stay retained unless you add them to House Bill 2.
It won't fall all the way through. We'll see them again in January.
I had a question about that last bill, Mr. Chair. Mickey, I thought there was a dollar appropriation for 671, but when I look on your sheet, you've got the 600,000 that they thought it would actually cost to run the program.
Yeah.
So,
So
are you just reading between the lines there?
I'm telling you the cost.
Right.
Yeah. There was a dollar appropriated for that one. If you wanted to fully fund
Got it.
the agency request, that's what's presented
Thank
here.
you.
Next section, so lines 26 through 31. These are bills that were referred to us yesterday, with the exception of House Bill 713. That was the week before. I'll very quickly go through these. EFA bill, we talked about that. House Bill 563, calculation of adequacy grants. We're going to have to dive into that bill. House Bill 675, this was the limit on school district appropriations, the local budget cap, I guess we'll call it. There's no state impact there, so that's why there's $0 carried. Mile marker on Route 112, House Bill 713, the Department of Transportation estimated about $250,000 of federal funds that they could use for that, but it would maybe displace other projects. Catastrophic aid, special ed, and then the cell phone bill.
On 713, the mile markers on Route 112. I just wanted to get an idea from the committee if they feel that we need to debate a lot or that's something that we can just approve and move on. It seems to be a policy decision that was clearly made by the House and it's federal money. I think the department can handle the prioritization of their federal money just fine. I'm just trying to see if we can get something off the table because it's a darn big table and it's creaking and,
Do we necessarily need to notice that we're voting on it?
We do,
Okay.
unfortunately.
So we'll have to push maybe till Monday. We can do that.
So this is a question now that we've kind of gone through these. We'll have to schedule a work session on these remaining bills, the work session not yet completed. So there's a couple ways we could do this. We could split it up into easier, do the easy ones and get those out and then save some of these education ones and have a longer work session, dive in deeper on those, or do them all the same day and just vote on them, or how you want to
But
do
at this
it.
point, the only day we're talking about, or the earliest we're talking about would be Friday,
So we're meeting
Week
Monday,
from today?
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday next week.
but how are you going to notice them?
They're in the calendar as budget work sessions now, so we've got it reserved, and I can notice a calendar notice, or excuse me, not a calendar notice, just a posting. I think it's 48 hours, 20. I have to check with the clerk,
Okay.
but I've already put in a request to Janet to say, if we posted a work session today, what's the earliest we can schedule it for?
Okay.
And so maybe it's Tuesday, maybe it's Wednesday, but whatever day that is, I'd like to get these off
Yeah.
our table.
I would too.
But then the question is, how much time would you want to allot for these discussions? Like, did you want to really dive into each of the bills during this work session, or do you just want to have a bang out the work session, retain, pass what you can quickly like we've done in the past, and then have a longer day talking about budget, education, trust fund, that sort of thing? And that's where it's up to the committee to decide.
Well, my sense is, when it comes to that part of the budget with charter schools and all that kind of thing, is those probably need a longer day, and some of these are included in that. So those I don't think would get banged out. But the ones that could get banged out, I'd like to do as early as possible.
You could you could just have a little just open discussion here. Is your intention to, and I'm going to go right down through here, retain. I don't know about 675 where anyone wants to go with that. I'm just thinking, how quickly could you just vote on these and then just get to that next step? Like Representative Popovich Miller just said, 713 you maybe could just pass, but then 773, 781, those are part of your budget, so you could just retain those and discuss those as part of.
So, I guess we could talk about the retain part of it, but that's just sort of putting off at this point, once we discuss them, aren't we to the point of doing something beyond saying retain and wait for another day because we're going to be out of days?
So, yes, But I'm just thinking if the intention, we've just got to get a requirement done out of the way, have a work session on these bills, take a vote on those bills. But I think you could just dispose of them pretty quick in that regard, but then have a longer work session to dive
Right.
into all of them.
I would like to concur with Mr. Landrigan. I think we gotta get the notice out of the way as fast as we can, so everybody has the notice and we've met that. We all know that we'll probably need more time to figure everything out, but if we could schedule a work session for all the bills that we did not complete a work session on, that will take care of the notice issue. And then if we can solve it during that work session, great. If not, we have a very short time to continue working on them. But this needs to get done and get out of the way so we don't have further delays.
Yeah, once you make a vote to retain, now we can discuss those issues as part of our regular budget work sessions, which we've got scheduled. I'm going to schedule them every day, basically, from here on out.
How many days?
But at least it gets that requirement out of the way. This committee does an official a vote on each bill. Check that box, and then we can.
So ASAP.
I think so, and I mean, I think you get through all your votes in probably an hour. I mean, I know these are issues you're going to debate much more, but they could be debated as part of a budget work session, not necessarily a work session on each individual bill, because the likelihood of, and I'm speaking way out of turn here, my sense is there's maybe one or two of these bills you'll pass, the rest you'll retain and debate them as part of the budget.
Yeah. And honestly, I just want to get to the no more requirements other than general budget work sessions, because we have a lot of work to do, and all this stuff takes away from that and could delay it. So I'd like this done as early as we can practically notice it with, whatever the chair feels, right? But personally, I'd like to just get it done out of the way and move on.
Go ahead.
So can you walk through again? I'm a little confused, using the word retain, and then having work sessions. I think, we've got at least a day's work here on anything that's related to education. So it seemed to me that we'd be looking at a whole day of discussion on these bills and then making the motion of whether or not, making a motion on what to do with them after we've had those work sessions. Because I was hearing retain and then work session, so now I'm confused about the sequence.
So let me speak to that. I think what he's saying, what Representative Popovich was saying was, no, we would just, speak for myself. We would take votes on retaining them as soon as possible. And some of them maybe we can actually dispose of beyond that. But get the voting out of the way on that motion, just as we would have voted to retain, just as I would have voted to retain some of these other bills earlier, and we're not going to talk about them until later next week or the following week. So the same situation, handle the posting, make the motion to whatever. You can make a motion of your choice, and we'll see how it goes. But then have the actual debate in terms of let's just assume for a moment they're retained, then have the actual debate over what to do about and putting them in the budget or not putting in the budget further on.
So when you're saying as soon as possible, that's not a euphemism for now.
Well, if possible, yes, but he has to notice it. So the soonest will probably be next Tuesday or Wednesday.
Meeting notice requirements. I mean, it's got to be done properly.
Representative Kelly.
So I'll just sort of summarize what's in my mind. This is sort of a technical thing where we're retaining, not killing, it's still alive, but because of the technicalities of trying to notice it in a time frame, we keep the bills and we can discuss them.
So you are accurate, but just to be clear about what's happened already, there's nothing that would prevent somebody from making an ITL motion and trying to kill it, and we would take a vote on that, and then it would be dead, or at least it would then go to the floor and be dead.
Right.
Or a motion to retain would be had. We'd vote on that, and then we wouldn't have to deal with it right then in terms of what we're going to do with it. Put it in the budget or let it ride until January. We'd then take it up further on next week or early the following
Right.
week. Does that make sense to everybody? Is that
Well, Mr. Chair, if I could just add the Democratic perspective to this discussion, is that it's clear to me that you're willing to expedite the ITL bills that might be something that we favor, to get those out of the way so that you can continue deliberating over the appropriations for the bills that you would like to retain. So I feel like if we are going to notice this and run to the finish line, that we should just acknowledge it, that, this is a fast track for some bills, and in others, they'll be able to have longer discussions.
I think you misunderstood me. I thought the ITLs would come from your side. I'm just basing this on past, my limited time with you all and what we've done over the past few weeks. But they could go either way. Anybody could make an ITL motion or a retained motion, and we would get it. We would.
And since I seem to have sparked a lot of this discussion, I'll say that my expectations that we'll retain all the bills that we cannot decide in a brief session. We'll decide on those where we have broad support in the committee that we can dispose of them one way or the other, and then just get the notice requirement out of the way so we can finalize the work on the budget. I mean, that's all.
We certainly will need to have an education work session, maybe a full day. So all of these bills, at least 4 of them, maybe 5 of them, are ripe for retain, and all those topics will be discussed. And then for them to get into the budget, they'll require an amendment that'll require a vote. So I think just like Representative Kelly said, it's somewhat of a technicality here. Let's get the requirement of the work session on those bills, take a vote on those bills, so we have a position on those bills. But the subject matter is probably going to be deferred to a work session and amendments as part of House Bill 2 and House Bill 1 and 2 later on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Representative DeRoy.
Just so that I'm clear on this, are we retaining these because they just passed down in the House? And then we get to talk about them now?
No, we can't do anything today.
No, I don't mean today, but I'm saying that's why we're retaining them, because they just passed?
Yeah. These just passed the other day.
Okay.
So we have not yet considered them. So we've already
We haven't
considered.
heard anything about them, we haven't, okay.
So
I
we've-
just wanted to make sure that the audience and myself knows exactly why we're doing this.
Right. So we've already been through a number of bills, which we'll then going to be executing tomorrow on the full finance.
Yeah.
These are bills that just came to us that eventually we have to deal with. But more importantly, subsequent to that, we then have to really deal with them in terms of, are we putting them into the budget or are we not putting them in?
Okay, I just wanted everybody to know exactly why. Thank you.
Is everyone good with where we're at with all of the requests? And this is what I have is everything at this point, until we get to the next House Bill 2 thing. But I want to get you out of here at noon today if I can as well. So moving to the next page.
Yeah, if it's me you're rushing for, I can, I can get past noon. It could be 12:30, maybe even 1.
Okay.
My next meeting is at 2 up at Granite Place.
Okay. The next page you'll see is somewhat underwhelming as far as detail. This is what these are the decisions you've made to date. So just so as you start making motions, as you start making changes, adopting amendments, I'll populate this each day and keep a running tab of all of your changes to spending and revenue by source.
Well, at least we didn't spend any new money yet.
True. And then the next 3 pages, I can go through detail if you'd like, but this is just an updated education trust fund surplus statement on line 7. And then the only change to this from what I gave you before is if you look on line 28, charter school funding warrants, in fiscal 25 for Division 2, the non-shaded column is $3 million. I was carrying a higher number the first iteration. The department said the warrant might only be $3 million. So I updated that. That helped the overall picture by a few $1 million, but that's the only change from what you saw before. As you can see, going down to line 53, over the biennium, there's $22.9 million in 26 and $79 million in 27 required from the general fund to balance the education trust fund with just what the governor put forward. That's still effectively our starting point. Any questions on this one? If not, we can move to the next page, the highway fund. So the highway fund has 2 differences here from the last version I gave you. One, if you look on line 13, House Bill 649, which was passed by the House, I think, last week relative to vehicle inspections, carries some revenue loss with it. So I've reflected that. It's about $1.5 million in the first year and almost $3 million in the second year. And then on line 19, the DOT transfers. This coming Friday, a week from today, there is about a $4.3 million winter maintenance request. So I've included that in that number for Division 2 for fiscal 25, the 14,801. That request number is in there. So that's assuming that fiscal and GNC, that transfer will be approved. If not, we'll revisit this. But so with those two changes in there, plus where we were before, going all the way down to the bottom right corner, you'll see we're about $15 million hole in the highway fund.
If I may, on HB 649, right? Obviously decreases some revenue. Wouldn't there be matching expenses? Did we ask the Department of Transportation of what their estimate is on the impact on the department if that bill becomes law? Obviously, I'm not going to comment on the chances of it making it through the Senate and through the governor, but if it does, do we have an estimate of the reductions in expenditures from the DOT because they would not have to administer that?
It would be a Department of Safety would administer that. And beyond just the distribution of stickers, I'll have to see if they have any other direct budget items relative to vehicle inspections and see if they're...
Basically, if we could check, because there should be a matching loss of revenue and loss of some expenditures. I find it actually surprising how every time we add a new program, they get new expenses, but when we remove them, the expenses rarely disappear. Not a comment on a department in particular, just in general. So I just want to make sure that we are doing our due diligence as time allows over those types of questions.
Yeah, I can reach out to the Department of Safety and see if they can identify any direct or even indirect costs with that. All right. And the last page here is just the Fish and Game surplus statement, and this has no changes from what I had provided before. So it still shows that they have a couple $1 million surplus at the end of the biennium. What jumps out is if you look on line 15, right across really for all 3 years, they're running at a deficit every year. So that the reason this budget balances is they start this fiscal year with $13 million, but they end, with just a couple. So you can see they're running at a deficit. So this plan carried into the next biennium would have issues, but we'll hear way more on this Monday morning, I think.
Are you done? Are we done?
That's the end of that document.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if there's any other questions with this as an entire package or anything that anyone has questions or wants to talk about.
Have we been through all of them other than the HB2 index?
Yes.
I don't think we're ever done, but we may be at a time where we can take a break, as in we may have done everything for today.
I do want to walk, or at least make you aware of this
Please.
document before we do break for the day. So this is a very informal compilation, I guess I'll call it, of all the House Bill 2 changes that agencies have provided. Again, not including Fish and Game. I didn't have a chance to really process their stuff from yesterday. And I've ordered it Department of Safety's first, then Department of Transportation, then Department of Education.
So when would you have provided this electronically?
I emailed this last night to everyone, and it's posted on the Division 2 website as well.
Did it come with the Fish and Game bunch?
No, it was an email.
How did I miss
I don't know. It was, yeah, 8 o'clock ish, maybe something like that. 7, 8 o'clock.
Huh.
Yes.
Swear, yeah.
Came in at find it. It came in at 750.
Division two track, it's not that group, right? The Division two
I think it is in the Division 2 tracking. There's 4 attachments to that email. This is one of those 4.
draft HB two?
Yes. Sure. This document is on the Division 2 website too.
Oh, sure. That's
Yeah. About the. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll point you to that after.
Okay, I'm with you. Thank you.
All right. So again, this is a pretty informal, just compilation, just so you'd have just one packet or one document of the agency's House Bill 2 draft language they provided. So these are obviously not official OLS amendments, so we can't act on these. I'm providing these to you just so you've got them. And if you do want me to draft an amendment, something you support, something you want to change, let me know and I'll have something drafted. I think everything in here you heard from when the departments were in. They've done a good job of, there's some here that have like a explanation or a reason for the change or a synopsis. So hopefully that could answer any questions if you trying to remember why it was asked for. But you can reach out to me if you have questions on this stuff, but otherwise I'm going to just leave that ball in your court. And if you want any of these drafted, to just let me know and then I'll include them in the packet for the committee to consider.
So these will require individual approvals or disapprovals by the committee or modifications?
No disapprovals, really just if you do nothing with it, that's it. But these are just to make you aware these were asked for. So I had all the funding requests on this document here. These are all the House Bill 2 requests effectively. So
So if you want to modify them or delete them, then you need to hear from
you don't even have to delete them. These are not in House Bill 2.
Oh.
This is like requested changes to House Bill 2.
Oh.
I mean, there may be one or two in here. This is the agency House Bill 2 request. Most of it is new. There may be a section that amends what's in here, but chances are what's in here is what they requested. We fixed the one safety one that was a mess up. The rest of these, I believe, are all new to House Bill 2.
So if we do nothing happens. They all die.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So we do need to do something if we want them.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. If you do support these requests from the agencies, let me know and I'll draft it.
Okay.
And just a reminder, we still have fish and game stuff to add to this.
And regarding the fishing game stuff, is most of the fishing game stuff what you sent us, or is there even more that they have not yet sent us?
I've sent you everything they've sent. And
Okay,
I'm going to
right.
ask them to walk us through all of that Monday.
So I would ask all of you, what do you want to do with our time?
Need to read them.
Yeah. What do you want to take some time and read them, or do you just want? I mean, this morning, or you want to not be, call it a day and what we've got another.
It would even
Hour
take
and a half
me,
if we-
it'd take, I know, it would take me a while to even figure out what I would need to read for today than to just go home and read them all.
Okay, no, that's fine.
So,
I just
yeah,
want to give
yeah.
you all whatever
Yep,
you want
no,
to do.
you're great.
And part of the design for why I wanted to get all this is so hopefully you'd have the weekend to really digest it all and maybe come up with a direction that either individually or as a whoever, to how you want to proceed with some of these things.
Representative Bobovich.
Yeah, just a quick question. You said that you just got the fish and game last night and you didn't have time to process them. Are you planning to process some of them this afternoon and send them to us for our review? Basically, I'm asking if there will be an update to this before the weekend, or we're just going to do that on Monday after we talk to Fish and Game? I'm fine either way. Just want to know what your plans are.
I don't plan on updating this one again. And all of what I received, you've received. So,
We're good.
and their requests are in there. So those documents essentially would act as, if I had had them a little sooner, I would have tried to.
So there is no need to add them here because we already have what's here, and then we already have the separate Fish and Game email, which for preparation purposes, I will treat those requests as being part of this.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think that's fair.
good.
And then same direction I would give you for the Fish and Game, either collectively as a committee when we're discussing it Monday, or individually if you want to support any of what they've brought forward, just let me know and I can have some drafted.
Will do. I just didn't know if there was more magic you were doing before you put them in the packet, and I'm good.
No, I mean, I may, if they've got, I think they had other funding requests besides just the general fund support. So I may add that to this document here, kind of, I may add those to there once I understand what they're trying to do a little bit. It may be for Monday morning, maybe for Tuesday, I'll see. I'd like to do it for Monday, but I'd also like to hear from them too, to be clear on what they're looking to do. So I guess the other thing that while we're here, I would ask is there any other agencies that you would like me to try to get them to come in on a specific day for a specific time to talk, answer questions, work through? Just with busy schedules of the agency folk, I'd like to grab them sooner than later if you know there's people you want to talk to.
It's sort of maybe moot at this point, but I guess DOE was expecting some people from special ed to come in and talk about, I think, more boots on the ground experiences with special ed. So I don't know if we could carve out a little bit of an education day for that. I mean, it's going to be a pretty full day or day and a half or two. But I did know there were people who were concerned that special ed was not here when we had the hearing.
And when you say special ed, they're special ed folks or
No, she was talking about having
school
a
folks?
coordinator or a supervisor, someone who has worked with the special ed. And I think there were some questions around, what does it really look like for a school district to have a special ed student? How does that, what is that year like when the student comes in? I'm not necessarily making the suggestion, but putting out there that I know that there was some concern about having a little bit more understanding of what's involved for a school district for special ed.
So we're going to schedule those 6 bills for a work session, and one of those is the special education aid bill, the former CAD aid bill. If it's up to the committee, up to the chair, those are, of course, are not public hearings. So it's really, who would you like to invite up? I know we talked earlier about quickly disposing them and retaining them for a future work session. You could use that day to hear from a non-state agency if you wanted to. I could invite someone to come talk about from the local perspective on special ed.
Do you know who you want to have? Oh,
I guess we could all ask around, but I think it might be an important, useful perspective to just understand how that can affect their budget and
I'm not averse to it.
what true costs
but-
are. Yeah.
I think Caitlin had some people in
Yeah, I
mind,
think
so you could, and
And that's what I just want to understand the intention of that work session day. Because I think when the FA bill, an adequacy bill, a SPED bill are put in the calendar, you're going to get some folks that are going to come through. And it's that then, if the plan is to abbreviate those discussions on the bill, retain it, and then have a bigger discussion another day, you can decide who you want to hear from on which day, or just let me know what to do and then I can coordinate it.
So I just want to be careful. I know I wasn't here on Friday, but I don't want a whole group of people. If there's a person that you think would be appropriate, and you could, do you want Mickey to talk to somebody in DOE?
Just ultimately a work session is up to the committee and you can call in who you want to speak. So, yeah, there's no requirement that you allow everyone who comes out to testify.
No,
or speak
I
to
do
it.
understand
So,
that.
yeah.
I just want to be clear that that's the intent. And then the question is, who's going to pick the person?
And I think I can work with Caitlin, and if she has a local administrator, a special ed administrator that she thinks could be helpful to just share from how the districts are doing special ed costs.
So if it's just a presentation and a Q&A on our part, if we could have that person on the same, like Tuesday, whenever you're doing this early
Yep.
retain thing, that'd probably be the time to do it. So
Yep.
we could, when we get to the big day, we don't we're not bringing people in when we're gonna have enough time to discuss stuff.
Does that work? Okay. I'll reach out to the department and try to, once I get a date that in time we're gonna have this, I'll reach out to the department and see if they can invite someone.
Okay. So are you all set in terms of,
I think I've gone through everything for today. Just kind of wanted to lay all that out there for you guys and kind of talk about the process for the next couple of weeks. It's going to go very quick, and we're going to have long days. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but if you have amendment ideas, even if it's a House Bill 1 change, get them to me as soon as possible. OLS will be inundated with all 3 divisions, plus all the other committees and the full House, the full Senate doing amendments. So we have a time we want to get everything done by. So I don't want to dump a bunch of stuff on them and say, we need all this by tomorrow. You know, it's just, I want to be realistic for them too.
so do you all have any questions for me or for the committee? Have I left anything?
You're good.
Okay, all right. I don't want to leave any other questions before the weekend. I want you all to be psyched for the weekend.
And
We're
was
psyched.
the SPED administrator the only other, because we've got fishing game Monday. I'll invite the SPED administrator. Do you want us to play it by ear as we go through, or do you want to designate days at this point? Like that's going to be your education day, or are you not prepared, not ready to do that yet?
I'm fine to designate a day if you all pick a day.
And that can be something people think about over the weekend, and we decide Monday as well.
Okay.
You know,
The only, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
My only concern that's kind of lingering from other things we've talked about today is the 911 surcharge and safety, and the intention to put the radio communications in.
So, and I assume you want to split those out. We actually talked about, Mick and I talked about this. Do you want him to prepare an amendment to do that?
Well, I think there might be some intelligence gathering worth considering still before we get to that phase. I think it would be nice to hear from someone other than the commissioner about what the program, the 911 surcharge fund does.
Ooh,
Yeah, I'm happy to do some work on that. My concern is that I think we're getting one perspective when I think that there might be other perspectives, and it is a policy change, not an appropriation change, and I think that it might be worth hearing the others.
it's both though, right? Potentially?
Well, I mean, potentially yes, right? So if you're adding radio communications to the 911 surcharge fund, then that means something that is currently being funded or in the past was being funded without the radio communications. Obviously something's not getting fully funded anymore because there's like a new expense. So
Just so I'm clear. So if I think if we follow through with what you're proposing, and I'm not averse to it, you would take something out of that fund that's currently being paid for that you don't believe should be there. So that would be an expense somewhere else, presumably for safety.
yeah, potentially.
Okay,
Right. But
okay.
of course that's up to the, the committee's wisdom. But
Yeah, no, of course.
I
But
just think it's worth having a fuller discussion about that policy change.
100% agree as long as you can come up with who and when. Because I agree with your concern.
And in one of the many emails I've sent, the Department of Safety did provide some follow-up information, and there was a memo relative to that discussion that may or may not help the discussion. Just wanted to remind everyone of that.
Have you already sent that to all of us?
That's sent and it's posted online too, if anyone needs to refer to that one.
So regarding safety, specifically the fee increases, do you think certainly we got a nice document. Do you think we need to hear from them? Because that'd be the other one I would.
It may not
Wonder
hurt to
about.
have them in to discuss that as well as anything else, and just if you have questions, they're here, and we could designate a couple hour window just to have them be available.
So that's one I would choose. The Turnpike seems like it's pretty, like we really don't need to do anything with it. Okay.
Yeah.
And are there any other, there's police standards, but they seem to be okay.
Yeah.
What are the other little ones are there?
I mean, lottery, depending on what you end up doing with VLTs, you may want to hear from them again. They also will have some position requests associated with that, which they put in their fiscal notes relative to that. Those positions were not included in the governor's budget, but they had, I think, 3 positions relative to administering and compliance relative to if they took that on. So I do have that detail. That would be part of a VLT amendment, I think.
So we probably should plan on them too at some point, but the amendment, as I understand that the amendment is being drafted, so hopefully we'll have that maybe shortly after the weekend. And then, once we have that, we could talk to lottery about it.
Yep. Yep. And then I don't know if you need to hear anything more from university or community college, or if you're set with what they provided.
That probably depends on where we get to with everything leading up to that point, because they have a big budget. So maybe.
But other than that, is education's the big one, just to, you know, I look
Right,
at
and
the
that's the one I'd like to sort of hit as early as possible, just because it's a lot to get through, and it has a big impact in terms of charter school funding, EFA funding, all those funding pieces of that adequacy part. So I think that's the most important one to hit early on.
You're saying of assigning days for that. Can we do that before the noticing, or I wasn't sure how that was going to work. I'm fine with assigning days if we can. I just wasn't sure that we
I
could.
think the assigning days would be for our internal benefit to know what your plan is for that day. I'm going to post everything in the calendar as budget work session to keep it flexible, so you're not bound to that one issue on that day. But I'm just thinking for your preparedness, as well as if we do need an agency to come in to be like, hey, you know, we're doing education all day that day, so safety, don't bother coming in.
So all we have is Wednesday and Friday. I mean, assuming you can notice things, so
We have two.
No, I know we have Monday and Tuesday, but my point is Monday's just in the morning for a couple hours. That's fishing game.
Yep.
And hopefully we can get through fishing game and maybe something else. And then Tuesdays, as soon as you can notice, you're not even sure you can notice for Tuesday, but let's hope you can.
So I'm noticed for a budget.
No,
works-
I know that, but in terms of the bills,
Yep. But even if we don't get to those till Wednesday, you'd still have all day Tuesday to do anything too.
okay. So
Yeah.
you want to start on education?
It seems like education is going to be the heaviest lift. And I think it's important to spend given the limited time, that we give education all the time that we need to give it. So I'm,
Fair enough. So, but we can't do the retaining at that point. So how does that all work?
Yeah.
I mean, nice to
Education.
be able to actually get something done as opposed to just talk about it for 8 hours.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping we do Wednesday, yeah.
maybe Wednesday is the safer day then.
Yeah.
If we can get things noticed for Tuesday or even Wednesday.
Yeah. Let's see what we can just get those bill work session out of the way first, and then maybe, because that's like I'm hoping we can do it by Tuesday. I don't know what the requirement is. I haven't heard back from Janet yet.
Okay.
But if we can notice that today, maybe that's plenty of time to do that Tuesday morning, and then you have a little bit more.
Representative Poppins?
And if we plan on that notice required work session to be brief, I mean, we can use most of that day for a general budget work session, right? So I would budget that notice required work session to be brief so that we can budget a regular budget session on whatever topics for the rest of that day, right? I don't want to waste too much time with that.
My one hesitation of doing education too soon is I'm expecting amendments, and I don't have any yet. So I don't know what we would be doing Tuesday. I'm envisioning maybe your first.
So maybe start with safety?
Yeah, you could get maybe safety in, or even, roll through the other sections of House Bill 2 that maybe you're not going to change, but at least like get to a point where you can vote on them to accept them as is. That sort of thing.
Is there a reason why we're not working Thursday?
The only reason why we wouldn't be working on Thursday, yes.
And
Welcome to finance. Yeah.
And there is a concern we're just keeping an eye on. The 26th is the drop dead date I gave you. That Wednesday could also be a potential session day we're hearing now. So you may lose a day on the back end of this. It's really not great to go past that.
So yeah, for now we are not gonna plan on Saturday or weekend work, but yeah, it is a technical possibility. So don't make too many weekend plans.
So I guess safety would be the one that be good to get in there, especially because they actually have impact on general fund stuff as well. Some impact anyway.
I'll try. I think that's a good idea, especially the fee discussion, because that's going to be a big part of your balancing here.
Right.
I'll see if I can. First of all, I want to see if I can get the work sessions on the bills scheduled that morning, and then maybe safety in the afternoon. It would probably be a productive day.
Sorry, that's Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Okay, so I'll do my best to find someone for Tuesday afternoon.
If you can, that'd be great.
And I'll try to email everyone by the end of today, just so
So
you know.
if I may
that
ask
works.
then, what are we planning to do on Monday? Just fish and game? Because it looks like we may maybe have a bit more time if we can find something productive
We
to
only have
do.
a couple hours in the morning.
Oh, right. Sorry, I forgot we have the full finance committee session Mr. Landrigan mentioned.
And
Yeah.
if over the weekend you, as a committee, have stuff you'd like to discuss to help your planning, we can always, like I said, recess and come back in here after the full committee work. Right, that's an option too. So
It depends.
25 people.
It's, you know how talking goes.
No, I don't.
Oh, wait,
floor speeches,
no more comments. So good for today, and we'll hope for the best next week.
What's going on today?
Well, what do you want to talk about? That's what's going on today.
Nothing else we can do?
If you got any ideas, put them forth.
Hey, I don't know the routine yet, so.
Well, the routine is, you know, what are you comfortable addressing?
We seem to be waiting on either amendments or more information on most topics that we could do. If what the chairman is saying is, if you are aware of a topic where we got all the information and we can decide, go ahead, but we don't see one.
I think that's been, the mile marks have to be noticed, but that's
Has
because
to be
that's a
noticed.
bill.
It's a bill.
Yeah.
Has to be noticed.
Those bills are killing us. What darn committee put those in so late?
hopefully that's the end of the bills coming before crossover here. We'll get more, obviously, Senate bills later, but that should be the end of House bills.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there ever a time that these bills are passed by the House? I know this is a silly question, and we're planning for all of these expenditures, and then they get to the Senate and they kill them. So
Yes, so
do
that.
we have an idea of which ones they're going to kill?
Well, no, but hang on. So that's the reason for HB2. They can't kill bills that we put into HB2. So all these bills that we've retained, the two choices we'll have are let them go until January and be considered, or more likely, put them into HB2. HB2 is the last bill the House will pass and pass to the Senate. Now, the Senate can mess around with it again, but it's messing around with the whole HB2 at that point. Right. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's why HB2 becomes this monstrosity.
This isn't about HB2.
Well, so far. All righty. So without any further comments at 11:48, I think it is, I will,
48.
okay. I will declare the Finance Division 2 meeting adjourned.